reports which are available on the Council's website. Just pause for a moment. Item 1 on the agenda, which is our emergency evacuation procedure. Got feedback about that. Can you hear us, Mr. Thomas?
Chairman, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, thank you.
Suddenly came through when you started that sentence, I think. Well, right. I don't know where we are, so please let me know when you need us.
Well, we'd like an outline and any updates, please.
Oh, sorry. Are we already on? Are you wanting to do the deferred item now? Because I don't know where you are at all.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, we're on the deferred item.
Right, okay, sorry, because it's been completely silent until just this second, so I wasn't sure what stage you got to. Okay, well, anyway, let me share my screen then. Hopefully this will come through to you. It's gone. Have you got my screen?
Yes, we have indeed, yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I'm just showing you the revised elevation. This application obviously came to you last month, and we've had it back to look at the designs. You'll see on them, paragraph 2.1, I think it is, what design changes we suggested to the applicant following the meeting. He's agreed to all those, and these drawings include those changes. That is timber windows all across the front here where it wasn't before, less windows on the front here, and this link in the centre here set back very slightly from where it was before. If I show you the overall plan, this link here, this bit in the middle here, was previously very close to the front, albeit set back a little bit, more or less where this line, dotted line, was here, and it's now set as far back as it can be effectively to the back of the garage. Those are all the changes we wanted. He's agreed to them all, and the report attempts to address all the other issues raised by the parish council at the last meeting, and then after discussions with the applicant and further site inspections. So the scheme is effectively the same as last time, but with a bit more information in the report for you. So hopefully it's a lot clearer now, and I can help with any questions if that's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I move the offer recommendation. Do you have a second, please?
Yeah, second.
Thank you, Councillor Paul.
What's the bidding?
Members. First of all, Councillor Long.
So I'm grateful that we've had the conservation officer report and there being those additions to the there are really two reasons on which I would maintain. The officer has very helpfully set out to report the calculation about the 60% rule. That it could be increased to 256 square meters, policy compliant 60%. That doesn't include any part of the very large attached triple bay garage or double story. That is described. So I would argue that is going to be 60%. It's still very much extension of school. Council will not. And you'll remember from last month all the other buildings surrounded by school. So I think it's a very nice garage, which is have spoken to the parish council. I see there are now some conditions about planting edge north in the garage. But the only ones that have to be used. So.
Thank you. Councillor Beard, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to keep it short and sweet, I think the deferral last time was justified, and I'd like to thank the officers for going back and looking at this, and the conservation officer in particular. And also, just from the bottom of 2.1, just to thank the applicant, the fact that they've gone away and agreed every single change that has been proposed. And I just think that it was right of us as a committee to ask for that information to be looked at, because otherwise last time we could have passed something that the conservation officer wouldn't necessarily be happy with. So I'm happy to give it a full support.
Thank you. Councillor Winters, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can the officer just show me again to jog my memory from the meeting a month ago what it looks like at the moment? You could do that, please. I'll make my mind up.
This is the, if you can hear me, this is the existing elevations of the house, the front and the back. And in the front elevation, the garage is to the side here. There's an existing double garage to the side there. I've probably got that's what the garage is. I've got some photographs. The applicant sent in a very helpful array of photographs which shows what it looks like now, with the house and the garage on this is probably the best one. So if I can get that in the right place for you. It's difficult with this system, I'm afraid. You can't just zoom in where you want to, you have to drag it around. So that's the current ensemble. And the idea that this bit here would disappear with the trellis on, and the link would stretch across between the two, and the new garage would be over to the right wall.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Thank you.
Members, anyone else? Okay, we've got to the vote on this one then, please. Those for. Those against. Abstentions. So, permission is granted subject to issue a decision notice by 13 to 34 of 2 weeks. Thank you. Members, we now move on to item 2.1. I thank you for getting an outline and any updates we have.
Thank you, Chairman. It's Andrew Byrne here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, good. I'm afraid we appear to be having some audio quality issues remotely. I can hear you at the moment, but the sound does appear to be dropping out from time to time. So hopefully this will work okay. Just bring up the presentation on the screen to members. Can you see that? Should be a plan of existing and proposed, the existing and proposed scheme.
Can you enlarge it at all? Yes. That's why I can do it enlarge it. It's nothing like it. Yeah, this is item 21/500 222/4. we're looking at, which is Grove End Farm, Redcar Road.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Okay, that's actually Mr. Thomas. Sorry, I think the sound quality isn't coming through very well, and I've misunderstood there.
So I think, oh, are we getting there? Oh, it's gone again, isn't it? What's going on here tonight? This is unbelievable. All right, here we go.
Indeed.
All right, I think we're there, are we? 2.1.
Yes, that looks.
Yes, well, there isn't any new information. This is simply an application for the change of use of this barn. You can hear me. Have you got my screen? I hope you have. It looks like that.
Yes,
Looks like right from my end. So it's a new barn, and it sits in this location here. Well, that's the road from Tunstall to Bredgar. On the left there, you go through the farmyard. Footpath is the footpath and a bridleway. This is another footpath. So more is converged there. I'll show you that. Yeah, so this is the position of the building we talk about in this corner, effectively between the footpath and the bridleway. But it's not a very interesting building, but because it's a fairly modern farm building. So this is it. Hold on. And the proposal is, as I say, it's for a company who specialise in farm chemicals and farm practices to use part of the farm for their crop research. But basically, that's nothing to do with the application. This application seems to use this building as their distribution centre in the southeast, basically for chemicals and products to do with farming. And there seems to be some symbiosis between the farm being here and the company being there. I think the most important thing for members to look at is the traffic implications, and they're set out in some detail in two charts and two graphs in paragraphs 2.10 and 11 of the report. But there isn't any new information that I can impart at this point. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much. Would I now please invite Parish Councillor Vivian Rich to speak on this item?
Good evening. We really do want this farm. Grove End Farm. The farm and designation are key parts, not just Huntsville, Wales, and indeed Kent's heritage that history and generation. Footpath and bridle path that run right through the centre of the farmyard form part of the main safe pedestrian route out of city rail customers. Incredibly well used in recent times and shown on ordnance survey maps going back. The landowner has looked after and fought for all this and with an absolute passion for it. Well respected throughout the village and farming community. Proposed tenant Agrivista is a national company based in Nottingham, turning into farm buildings for its storage. Why should they be concerned with well heritage saving things or worry about rural areas? This is our one chance to protect the site for the future with appropriate conditions on this application. As this huge barn and tarmac apron went up with no compensation or protection from development. A big thank you to officers who have pushed for detail behind this application and really thought about conditions to help protect the site and the country lanes from excess. A very balanced report. But we do still have concerns about lorries, parking bays, lighting, footpaths. What we'd really welcome is a site visit by the committee to However, if you are minded to approve this today, we would ask for a very specific extra condition of the department, either one that prohibits overnight parking by HGV lorries or a review monitoring site vehicle movement, so that residents in Tunstall and adjacent parishes along the country lane routes do not end up with the worst of both worlds, the new agri-risk vans plus the lorry they claim to replace. I can assure you that Tunstall residents are very proud of their farming tradition.
Thank you very much. Could I now invite Mr. Jonathan Lee, who's the agent, to speak on the site? Mr. Lee, are you able to hear us? Okay, I'll get our Democratic Service Officer to read it out, because we don't appear to have Mr. Lee on the call.
I would like to thank you for tonight for the application. I'd also like to thank planning officer for the application for our challenging time. Start me to get us going through all the time. Welcome the committee. In our submitted application, we've tested opening hours of 7 to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, some season mediation. Just the planning condition states that the hours should be restricted to 7 to 5 p.m. on weekdays and shall not be placed at any time on weekdays. That of the application is the area agriculture is, and as with a lot of things, largely governed by Agri-Vista has to react to needs of their customers during the peak season, mid-March to mid-June. May mean opening limited hours on an occasional Saturday. Depending on the time of the visitor, they normally operate on Good Friday, so it would not be ideal for bank Saturday hours were requested. Agri-Vista has had to work 5 Saturdays in the last year at their event. I can confirm that Agri-Vista does not intend working Sunday. This would not be able to operate those weekend activities, being a loss. Grand position is in the interest of the community area, where no immediate neighbour is likely to be affected by limited bank holiday or Saturday work. A limited Saturday opening perhaps restrict the limited yearly number of days to, and bank holiday opening not cause any detriment to the area. Rest of this speaking to the finance. That in mind, thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I now invite Councillor Monique Bonney as ward member to speak on this item, please?
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Well, I couldn't hear the previous two speakers, so I don't know if the committee did.
We did indeed.
Okay. Right, I would like to echo the comments made by the representative from the parish council. In the report on 2.8, as Mr. Thomas said, this there's a commentary on the traffic. I think you'll see that this is a new barn. I think it's about 2 years old. So it actually hasn't had much of a history in grain storage. In fact, some of the locals I've spoken to can't remember grain being stored there at all. So if you look on 2.8 and third from the bottom, it says this can result in 50 HGV movements from the site. I don't think there has ever been a history of HGV movements on that kind of scale, because the barn hasn't been used for on a regular basis for that, as it's only 2 years old. It feels to me like permitted development rights have been used here to build something that would otherwise have needed planning permission. And here we are 2 years later asking for this. So there's a couple of things. I would like to echo the call for a site visit. There are two very important footpaths here, including, well, one is a bridle way, for which there are very few bridle ways south of Sittingbourne. I've already mentioned about the traffic movements, and I would like to echo the call for the additional condition if you feel you don't want to do a site visit and you are minded to approve it. I would like the condition about the overnight parking and the other one mentioned by the parish council. So thank you very much to the members.
Thank you very much. I move the officer recommendation. Could I have a second, please?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Councillor Wingers. Thank you, Chair.
Listening to the debate so far and listening to the ward councillor, I would like to or make any position. I've got a second.
Farmer. Councillor Hunt.
Thanks. I think site meeting, we'll get to see the footpaths and everything that's been mentioned in the report. But I'm not too sure exactly what else we're going to see. We can see from the map there how it sits, and I think most people know what the roads are like around there. I'm not sure what a site meeting is going to achieve apart from seeing where these footpaths are. But is the officer able to pinpoint on the map that's on the screen where those footpaths go? It says it runs across the access. Good to see where that is. If we can see that on the map, then I know really see the site.
If you'd like me to try and help now, I can just about hear you, James. The bridleway runs from the farm gate here through the busy farmyard and across here to what I call the concrete road, which goes across Kent Science Park, basically. That's quite a busy, well-used route. The other footpath comes, if you look, up from Bredgar this direction across the field behind this housing estate here, up to here, essentially straight across, and then, as I recall, right next to these buildings, and then down to Tunstall where the school used to be. So it's across the middle of this field and down. It's not right here. This is that field boundary. There's trees on. It's through the middle of this. So the actual junction is here somewhere. And I mean, I walked and run these footpaths more times than I care to remember. And what you realise when you come down from the concrete road is you're going right through the middle of what is essentially a fairly large farmyard with some fairly large machinery scattered around, and so you're going to take quite a lot of care there. So it's a busy little spot, this, to be fair. But the crossroads is about here. I've brought up some photographs of the farmyard. If I go back to my little set of photographs here, let's have a look. Well, this is the view. I think the building we're talking about is on our right here, and you walk through the farmyard and out to the Tunstall Bredgar Road. You can see there's big vehicles and lots of vehicles and machinery, and you walk through this. I think this is the view from the concrete road facing west. So I'm not sure. Got another view of the. Yeah, this is again. This is where you're coming from the concrete road past the building and then into the farmyard. The site entrance isn't very interesting. That's the big metal gate onto the Tunstall Road. So you walk in through the farmyard here, past that little fence we saw earlier, and the building is, I think, possibly that one you can just about see. So it's quite a it's quite a busy little place to walk through. Hopefully that helps in some way to show you where we're
Yes, thank you.
where we're looking at. Thank you.
Agenda, please.
I also don't think that the site was a problem either. My concerns were traffic in the things. When you look through that before, and they say there's a massive reduction, that reduction actually is just about 8 months, I think.
It is, yeah.
And then a slight increase the rest of the day. Then when you look at the increase in cars or vans, there's a massive increase. So yes, it'd be great to get extra to go, but what are more vans going down? And I'm concerned about their routes in and out to this site. I don't think the site will be bulky. I can't quite get my head around traffic issues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As I propose the site review, second council.
Well, we that was debated before.
We debated.
Talking to that.
Sorry,
one.
sorry to.
Okay. All right, members, anybody else? Okay, those in favour of a site visit? Those against? Abstention. That's 3 for, 9 against, 3 abstentions. So that motion is lost. So we're back to a substantive motion on the floor. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thanks, Chair. With this one, I think obviously there is the traffic concern. I think what we need to be careful of is, and we've seen it in the past, is having that evidence to prove it wrong. And I think obviously officers and the applicants have done a lot of work on this, and we've got a lot of evidence that's been put forward, and officers have come to the conclusion that it should be proved. So I'm going to find it difficult to argue with. There is, that's the biggest thing is the traffic. Obviously the building isn't changing, there's nothing there that we can be looking at, and it's just the movements from the site. And there is obviously the concern about the footpath, and I do share that concern if we are going to be having more movements through here. Even though at the moment they can come through referred that they don't use that at the moment. I think the argument there that we can't use against that is because there could be more roads coming in and out, so we need to take that into account. It's not what is happening, it's what could happen, even if nothing's through from this one. But there is concern. I think something can be done with the signage on that road. If there's no signage there at the moment, pedestrians going across there with more vehicles coming through, and especially Mr. Thomas said it is a busy site. So I think some signage is going to help. And I would propose we ask for some additional signage, and whether officers think it needs to be another condition. And if so, I would say before the use is commenced for premises occupied, detail for signage warning the pedestrians. The location of those signs is submitted to and approved by the local planning authority. The agreed scheme shall then be implemented in full in accordance with the agreed implementation programme in the interests of highway safety and movement. Just off the top of my head.
Yes, that pre-prepared script.
Does that sound all right?
Sorry, Captain Dennis. Yeah, I'll put that back to Mr. Thomas first of all. Is that something we could consider, Mr. Thomas?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what he said at all. I think he said something about signage, but I can't hear anything apart from you, Chairman, Councillor Beard was very clear. Councillor Bonney was extremely clear. But all the others, it's really hard to hear anything other than the other fifth or sixth word, really. So please, if you could repeat it, it'd be really helpful.
No, I couldn't, but I will get.
Oh, yeah, you're lovely and clear, see?
Okay. Am I
What
clear
was?
now?
Please.
Can you hear that, Mr. Thomas?
I can hear you, sir.
Can't hear me.
I'll try again, James, because I think I might be able to.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. So I'm proposing a condition that before the use is commenced or the premises occupied, details of signage warning of pedestrians and the location of those signs be submitted to and approved by the local planning authority. The agreed scheme shall then be implemented in full in accordance with the agreed implementation programme. And that's in the interests of highway safety and amenity.
Yeah, I got all that. I don't see a problem with that.
Okay, thank you. So, first, second for that. Then those in favour of that amendment. Thank you. Councillor Simmons, please.
Sorry, not just sorry. Just
Yes,
another
I
thing.
will allow you.
Sorry, I haven't finished, but I thought I'd get that one out. The other thing I'm not too sure about is the Saturday working. I just wonder what the hours of working are at the moment. If we put a condition on there saying that they can't be there on a Saturday, as the agent's speech was at the beginning, how that's going to work. Because if we're allowing Saturday use there at the moment and we then put a condition on, I was wondering what the reason for that condition is, because if the use is already happening on a weekend, obviously it depends whether we still go along with that and the applicant can appeal it if they want to, but we just don't knowing why there's a condition for Saturday if not already, and maybe there is.
Chairman, from my point of view, as an agricultural building, that is, I'm not aware there's any restrictions on when the agricultural building would be used. It's been put up as permitted development. There aren't any conditions at all as to when it can be used. And as we know, farmers sometimes work at strange hours as they need to, harvest time, etc., etc. But we've put on the hours that the applicant asked for effectively, and as he didn't ask for Saturdays, we felt it was reasonable not to approve Saturdays, because you know, in the sense that the less hours of activity, the less hours of traffic, basically. So that's the simple logic to from our point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, I think what Mr. Thomas was saying was that the applicant requested any Saturday work. No, he hadn't. So they assumed that we wouldn't, shouldn't approve the weekend.
A point of clarification then, Mr. Thomas, because I know you probably didn't hear it, but when the applicant's speech was read out, he said that he had requested Saturday hours and couldn't understand why we'd put a condition not allowing.
Well, you're right. I didn't hear that at all. But I'm pretty sure that the hours that we're recommending are the hours that the applicant put on his form. I can check that for you if you want. Can I just drop the screen a second, and I'll just dig into for you a second. I might be able to show you the application form in a second. I need to get a different program up. Just a minute. I'll check this for you now. Bear with me. Nearly there. Right. I've got the. Hopefully, I'm back. You'll got my screen back in a second. But if you look at what's on the screen now, you can see that on the application form they've asked for Monday to Friday 07 to 1700. So that's exactly what we've reflected in the condition, I believe.
Yes.
Or now, then it's up to members whether they want to obviously vary that condition.
Beach is correct. He also recommended perhaps that they could have a few Saturdays across the year. So there was definitely variance of what you've got on your form.
Well, it's certainly news to me tonight, so I don't know where that came from.
Okay, that's fine. We've seen the form and we can work with that. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Chairman. My concern about this is something that Councillor Bonney raised. This is a brand new agricultural building. Given permission, if I'm reading this correctly, in April 2019. I don't know when it was actually erected, but at best it will have been used as a grain store for 2 harvests. In reality, it's probably only been used for 1 harvest, if used at all. And the applicant is now saying that it's an existing farm building that is no longer required. And I find that rather suspicious. And I'm not very keen on this application for that reason. The storage of agricultural chemicals. I mean, I'm a farmer, so I store chemicals on the farm. Where they're held in depots, they're usually held in an isolated from other activities, and I think this is not necessarily a good place to store chemicals in bulk. I'm concerned that, and I see that the report 2.3 says that there will be a small overnight parking area for up to 5 lorries. And again, that looks like I don't know what you call it, industrialization, urbanization of an agricultural site. I'm not keen on it at all, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Winters, please.
Thank you, Chair. Has the officer got any photographs of the roads that he used? You know what they're called, but perhaps members that don't know the rural roads and how narrow they are. Graham, have you got any of that, please, if possible?
Not specifically, no, not just the general roads in the general area, no.
Oak Street's pretty narrow.
I've got only where the site entrance is. I showed you that earlier, that where the site entrance is, but this is the site entrance, which does perhaps show a bit of the lane outside. This is the road up to the Tunstall Memorial Hall, but not the roads in the general area, no.
Okay.
I'd just like to add, I do echo concerns about the vehicles, increasing vehicles that will be accessing from the A249, M2, etc. to get to this site, which has been echoed council earlier on possibly. So I have great concerns to support this tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer, please.
I echo what Councillor Simmons has said actually. So I won't cover the same point, but I think he's hit the nail on it, what he stated. But if we are minded to pass this tonight, can we put some a condition against overnight parking in the area, or something to limit it in some way, if we are minded to pass tonight? As I think I will be voting against it, but I've got an open mind and the other debate. Thank you.
Do you want to make a formal proposal to that?
Yes, I would propose that there be restriction on overnight parking between 1700 hours and 0700.
Do you have a second? Councillor Winters. Members?
I just asked on that where the restrictions are. It needs to be specific. Are we saying no parking on site or no parking in the area? Because in the area, I don't know how we're going to be able to get that.
You know, they have to be on site.
Chairman, if I might, perhaps I can say something at this point. Is that all right?
Yes, of course. It is.
What I'm thinking is that the application site boundary, I think I've been showing it all night, is the red line. The conditions would only apply to the red line, but then again, the planning permission would only apply to the red line too. So while it's a vehicle parking area shown along here and at the back, and I'll go back to that plan I had on the screen just now, perhaps, because that is the one that it shows you where it shows it to be. The application that's been submitted to us with the proposal that there's some staff parking along here on the hard standing here, and overnight parking. It says on this plan, overnight parking for 1 3.5 ton, 1 5.5 ton, 2 7.5 ton, and 1 18 ton. In that little area there.
So, I was having difficulty hearing you there, Mr. Thomas. Could you just?
Yeah. Welcome to the club. But
we got the element where you said about the staff parking.
So this is shown as staff parking. So I guess that's daytime, car parking. But this area at the back of the building is specifically referred to on the plan here as overnight parking for 1 3.5 ton, 1 5.5 ton, 2 7.5 ton, and 1 18 ton vehicle. Now that's within the application site boundary because it's within that part of the red line here. So you can impose conditions on it. My only thought on this is that if we stop the vehicles parking overnight, that would mean they'd have to leave at the end of each day and then come back at the beginning of the next day, which doubles the amount of traffic, I would have thought. It seems silly to take an empty lorry away and park it somewhere else, I know on a housing estate in lay-by or hopefully an authorised lorry park, and then bring them back empty. If they park here, there's two less movements on the local lane. So I wonder whether that's a really good idea for members to think about.
Okay,
Chair.
thank you.
Yes, I think fairness answer on the question. When you're saying that stop parking during HGV, that's 2 classes vehicles. I do accept what Graham has said. You do push. You're going to find. I think it's the best place to be on.
Councillor Hunt, can I just come back to your original point? You raised the issue initially. You had a question for Mr. Thomas, which is just answer about the parking.
Yeah, no, mine's been answered. It's on-site or off-site, and that's one of the concerns that I'm saying that I don't think we can do anything off-site. No. If we then do it on-site at the same point, then pushing the problem out onto local roads.
Councillor Martin, please.
I'll keep it brief because it's pretty much the layout's been hit pretty much on the head by Mr. Thomas and Councillor Hunt. If you put restrictions on for overnight, you've got the HGV drivers' hours to them. You need to issue the day and have to head off elsewhere. Parking in places that don't want them parking already out on the rural lanes and the estates, etc. Or do we get them parked where they finish the day? Out of the way where they issues, potential accidents like we saw at Dunkirk a few years ago.
Thank you. Councillor Beers.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Similarly, if you refuse that parking area, apart from the 18 tonner, I would imagine the 3.5 ton, the 5.5 ton, and the 7.5 ton vehicles are going to park overnight in those bays that are there for the people who work on site, because they will simply just move to the other side of the building and make use of that area overnight. I also think that this proposal is completely contradictory to the existing condition number 5, because the whole point of condition 5 is to provide vehicle parking areas for the reasons that Councillor Martin just said, for the amenity of the area and not being detrimental to highway safety. And I think if we put in another condition that's completely contradictory to a condition that's already there, unless you're planning to remove it, I think the applicant will just be pulling their hair out which way do they go, and I think we'll probably end up with an appeal coming. So I think we need to make a decision one way or the other, but I think number 5 is sufficient.
Thank you. Okay, members, we'll put that one to the vote then. Those in favour of overnight parking? Against? Okay, that's lost. Back to the substantive motion now, then, members. Is there anybody else that wants to speak to this item? Councillor Marchington, please, apologies, I did see you earlier.
Farms are all discussed before about the farms have changed, moving to ever larger requirements. Major bulk distribution storage, controlled everything, going out, going across. And we're losing a lot of the small, losing a lot of the tech farmers. So I'm not sure what the happy this site we don't from. There's at least to give the storage chance to continue farming. You think to them after well. So therefore if that's getting used because it's too small for bulk store distribution. So
Thank you. Councillor Denver.
Thanks. Point of clarification. If we are minded to approve this, so we are
Under signs.
unsigned. So we are not contemplating this. So it's being asked.
Councillor Bates.
Yeah, the reason I asked for the clarification on that was I was going to suggest an amendment, but the fact that they hadn't replied to it, I think what's in there currently is what they asked for. If they haven't filled in the form as they thought they were filling in, that they'd have to come back and apply for a change.
Okay, members, so we just want to the vote then, please. Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? It's 11 for and 4 against, so permission is granted subject to the issue of the decision notice. Thank you, members. And just in case anybody's wondering about why I'm announcing the numbers, it's because officers are struggling at home to actually find the outcomes of the way away. So, more kind of sinister than that. Thank you. We now move on to item 2.2. This one's 14 Woodpecker Drive, Highway, and I'll call in our earlier officer, Mr. Byrne, please, to give an outline of the updates on this one. So I know he's very, very keen on it. In fact, that drawing looks familiar.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
We can indeed, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies for trying to promote this item higher up the agenda earlier. I'll start again. If I can just give members a quick update, if I could refer members to firstly the tabled update, they'll see that further parish council comments were received, albeit that essentially they repeat the same concerns that the parish council had raised earlier. on the scheme and as reported in the main papers. The second update I just wanted to give members is in respect of the depth of the first floor extension above the garage, which is reported in paragraph 8.9 of the committee agenda. If I can just show this image to members. I've reviewed the depth of the first floor extension, which you can see here between the two red lines, when measured from essentially from a start point of the back of the neighbour's rear elevation, and that measurement measures at 1.83 metres rather than the 2 metres that is reported in the main papers. So if members can bear that in mind as well, please. If I go back to the actual proposal itself, if we start with a photograph of the property just for some context, this is the application site here with a single garage to the side, and as members can see, the property is in a staggered line of properties, number 14 here, number 12 which sits considerably forwards of number 14, and then number 16 here which sits considerably to the rear. In terms of the proposal itself, this actually follows a refusal of planning permission under delegated powers under a recent application for not too dissimilar scheme. In fact, if members can see on the screen, this is the scheme that was refused by officers previously, and primarily the concern related to the scale of the development proposed above the garage here, and also to extensions to the rear of the garage, which were shown here, which, as members can see, extended approximately 3 metres to the rear of the existing garage footprint and morphed into a 2-storey extension on the back of the property here. And from the side elevation here, members can see the existing garage, and the scheme that was previously refused would have extended the garage roof from the front elevation up to this point, where it then morphed into a 2-storey extension that extended further beyond the line of the garage. If members just keep their eye on that part of the plan, when I toggle between the two, you'll see the key differences. So when we go here, what we now have actually is an extension of smaller scale here. The roof of the garage has been reduced down in height compared to the previous scheme, and the 2-storey extension has been pulled back and sits under this small shallow pitched roof here. The proposal to extend beyond the footprint of the existing garage has been entirely removed there, and the first floor extension, as members can see, now sits further back into the roof of the garage. The other key difference between the scheme that was refused and this current scheme is that there's a part single storey, part 2-storey extension proposed at the rear of the site here. As members will see under the refused scheme, that was in fact shown as purely a single-storey extension, but that has now been amended to incorporate a part 2-storey element here, which sits in this part on the site plan. Members can see in terms of the relationship with number 16, that property is staggered quite considerably back into the site. Its main windows face front and rear. There are some windows on the side elevation which serve a bathroom, landing and a kitchen that do face towards where this extension will be. But as members will see in the report, we don't consider that those windows are the impact on those windows would be unacceptable given their status. essentially serving non-habitable rooms. And the kitchen itself, it's understood that there is also a window on the rear elevation of that property that serves the kitchen area. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Could I now invite Parish Councillor Barry Smith, please, to talk on this item? Mr. Smith not with us. Very much. I get our Democratic Service Officer to read out his input. Thank you.
Highway Parish Council's objection. So, post extension greatly footprint of the building, governing it makes right cut out a massive amount of light, adjacent building, resulting in a loss of light overshadowing the ground, resulting loss of opening. Because of this, the Parish Council staff the planning committee slightly so that we fully appreciate the impact of the development, and in particular the close proximity. Parish Council also passed the planning committee taking into account today's comments.
Thank you very much. I now move the officer recommendation. Could I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor McCall. Members. Councillor Hunt. Oh, sorry, no apologies. We've got a ward member with us. Apologies, Councillor Woodford.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just like to say I know that the area where I was around this morning as well, just to refresh my memory on it. I feel that the changes that the applicant has made in view of the initial application that they made, and obviously that being deemed as not acceptable, they've answered quite a lot of those concerns that were raised, and myself personally wouldn't have any concerns with this application, so I would be minded at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the same. I think they've taken on board from the last one and made changes. I think we do have to recognise that there is going to be loss of light to that side. But as we've heard, the consideration is what impact that's going to have. And as it's a bathroom and a kitchen, I think looking at photos and the site, it's actually a door to the kitchen rather than a full window. The fact they've got a window at the back as well, can't see that we've got any argument with that. So there will be some loss of light, but it's not something to be refused on. I've got no problems with it.
Thank you, Councillor Wingfield.
I would just like to say I had great concerns. Skips past the loss of light to the neighbours, but under existing planning laws, I understand it. We voted it out, went to appeal, we would lose, but I am concerned about loss of light.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dender. Thank you. Members, put this one to the vote then. Those in favour? That's unanimous, so permission is granted, subject to the issue of the decision notice. Thank you. Members, can we now just jump ahead to part 3 of our agenda, please? And in particular to item 3.1, which is 21/500413/ out. And this is land at 32 Linden Drive and 67 Queensway, Sheerness. And could I ask the officer, please, for an outline and any updates we've got on this one, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just while I'm bringing the presentation up on the screen, if I can refer members to the tabled update. Members will note, importantly, that the applicant has in fact now appealed against non-determination of the application, which essentially means that the council cannot formally determine the application anymore. That's now in the hands of the planning inspectorate. However, the council obviously still needs to set out its position in respect of whether or not it would have refused the scheme, and that would form the basis of its defence of the subsequent appeal. So we would ask members to consider the report on that basis and to advise or to agree whether the grounds for refusal are those that should be presented to the planning inspectorate as the council's defence in relation to the appeal. In terms of just a very quick general overview, this is an outline application for residential development on the corner of Linden Drive and Queensway in Sheerness in Westminster, and the application is for 3 residential units. This is a site plan which indicates how the development could proceed. It's illustrative because given the outline nature of the application, clearly those matters would come forward in detail under a reserved matters scheme. But the officers have considerable concern about the impact of the development on what is a fairly modest plot, and consider that the development would be particularly cramped in relation to the surrounding area, which is dwellings with relatively spacious plots and good gaps between buildings and so on, as is illustrated on this plan, and the fact that essentially this development would be building on a prominent open corner site, where, as members can see on the other side, again, character is that these corners are undeveloped and form an important component of the estate layout. The other issues that officers have with this application is that there is an objection from the Environment Agency on flooding grounds, and the developer has not demonstrated that a scheme can account for flood risk in an appropriate way, and no payment has been made in respect of the SAMS policy and a policy to mitigate against impacts on the special protection area. So officers' recommendation is that the scheme should be refused on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, could I now invite Mr. John Keeley, please, to speak on this item?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you, Mr. Keeley. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is John Keeley of CK Designs, the agents for the application, and I would like to thank the committee for allowing me to speak this evening. Mr. Chairman, the officer's report before you lacks, I believe, certain information needed for the committee to reach a decision on this application. For instance, it mentions a lack of a SAMS contribution. I can confirm we have not been asked for such a contribution, and had we been asked, my client would have agreed to pay such a contribution. Also, this report makes no mention of similar applications which have been improved by the planning department in the area, all of which had office and/or workshops on the ground floor, and I believe set precedents for this application, and which I listed in my email to the then planning officer on the 11th of March of this year. I also mentioned in that email the layout to the ground floor could be changed to include the kitchen, and the office could go to the first floor. We received no reply to that email. One of the applications on the list was for a single dwelling with office and workshop on the ground floor, and I believe to be particularly relevant as the dwelling is in Queensway and was the subject of a previous appeal and subsequently granted approval. The planning officer's report himself contradicts himself in his report, stating the site on the one hand is modest in size, but then also mentions the floor areas to the proposed dwellings as being quite large. The report also states the size of the rear gardens as being small. I would refer the committee to the location plan supplied by the planning officer with his report and look at the size of the rear garden on Coates Avenues, all of which are smaller than the proposed gardens. I believe any issues regarding the flood risk are covered in the flood risk assessment supplied with the original application, of which there is no mention in the officer's report. Mr. Chairman, as you know, this application is the subject of an appeal for non-determination, and as such, jurisdiction for this application has passed to the Secretary of State, and the local authority cannot determine the appeal. I therefore respectfully ask that this committee refuses to reach a decision on this application and leaves the appeals inspector to determine this application. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. Thank you.
Thank you. I now move the officer recommendation. Do a seconder, please.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. This one's been done.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I would support the officer's recommendation, be minded to refuse the application. It is in a neighbourhood area, but the fleet is very close by, so flooding would be an issue. And also it is overdevelopment of the area. I believe in three houses in that very small corner plot that is shown, the last picture, I believe. It's not very useful space, so I'd be minded to go against, approve the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Denver, please.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, we are only indicating we would have
Yes,
to
absolutely.
support our officers, and I support the everything that you said. The flooding aspect, the roof size compared to those houses, design would stand out completely from both houses. And obviously, it's clearly said that Sam's would have been. We are refusing this application in front of us, not what might have been. So on the application received tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer, please.
Thank you, Chair. I concur with what Councillor Kendall has said. I've looked at the Sam's, and even if it was a Sam's contribution, I think it's quite clear that they've done a diligent job, have sound reasons.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thanks, Chair. I'll make a comment on the sand one, because I must admit I find it a bit difficult, that one, because we've seen it before. Where it's obviously understandable that we don't ask for SAMS payments, but it's going to be refused. I think if it then goes through and say an inspector decides that the reason 1 and 3 shouldn't go ahead, but then there's no SAMS payment, it then gets turned down at appeal as well. It just does seem a bit strange to me that when you've got an applicant willing to pay that, we then put refusal on it because they haven't done. I can understand why, but it does seem a little bit strange to me.
Yeah, just bring our legal officer in on this.
Thank you, Chairman. Usually where there is an appeal situation, there is an opportunity for the applicant to put a Section 106 unilateral agreement in to the Planning Inspectorate. They can work with the local authority to draft that. We have a standard form of drafting for the SAMs that can be used, and we can work with the applicant on that so that it can be submitted as an appeal document, and that would also see away that reason for refusal at the appeal. We wouldn't defend that if that was then in place.
Thank you. Councillor Burt, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I fully support the officers on this and will do. What I wanted to comment on was the fact that this is only here because of a town council objection, which I can only describe as incoherent, and the fact that they haven't turned up to explain it, it's clearly not based on planning considerations. What we've got there in 5.0 is completely pointless.
Thank you. disagree, but I don't. I agree wholeheartedly. Members, anybody else on this one? Okay, we'll take this one to the vote then. Sorry. We're
Just to be
voting.
clear, we're voting that we would have refused it if it had come.
Yes. Yeah. So in other words, in favour of the officer's recommendation, had we had it in front of us for determination. So those in favour, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. So we would have refused had it come to us. Members, if we can now go back, please, to item 2.3. This one is 21 League 503136 League AV, and it's Suzuki Medway, Rainham, London Road, Rainham, Gillingham, Kent. It's obviously one of those we didn't quite manage to push over the border yet.
Thank you, Chairman. That's myself again. If you can just bear with me whilst I bring up the presentation. I can inform you that there are no updates to give you, so you can just bear with me. Right, okay, we got there eventually. This is actually a retrospective application for various signs to the Suzuki garage off of the A2. And apologies, but my computer's just taking a little bit of time to catch up. Here we go. As members will see, this is actually a recommendation for a split decision. There are a number of signs that are proposed which officers think are acceptable, including signs to the fascia signs to the building itself, which is here, and two freestanding small directional signs which are along the frontage, which are non-illuminated and small in height. The sign that officers have particular concern about is the totem sign, and in fact I'll go straight to the photo because that shows it as it's retrospective. It is this sign here, which is an illuminated sign of up to 5 meters in height. You can see here the other signage is here, low key at the front of the site and around the fascia of the building here. There's also a small totem sign near the building which you can't see on this photograph as it's obscured by in fact there it is there, sorry, beg your pardon, which is only 2 meters in height. In this instance, I mean, members will be well aware that the A2 is a major route through the borough and crosses through as well as urban areas, large areas that are designated as rural areas, of which this is one such area, and we consider that this sign in particular is harmful to the character of the area and rural amenity. We also note that a sign has been refused, a very similar sign at the Hyundai garage site, which is a very short distance away on the A2, and that this site itself has had refusals in the past for a totem sign in a similar position and of a similar height. So our recommendation is to issue a split decision, to approve the majority of the signage, but to refuse this totem sign at the front of the site. Thank you.
Thank you. I move the officer recommendation. Can I have a second, please? Thank you, Councillor Palmer. You second it, and it's on your pack, so would you like to speak first?
certainly I concur with the officer's report. I think it's a very good report. It does deal with part of our council 5.2. They did raise some objections, exactly because of the what the officer detailed in the conditions. So I think the conditions and the report have covered everything that the parish council objected to, and no, Newington didn't have any comments on this, so partly up to it. So I'm quite happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you. Members, anybody else? Councillor Dender, please.
Yes, simply support that in the high end side, similar to used by the inspector. Just as matter of information, files that have been taken down.
Councillor Hunt, please.
Thanks, Chair. And just to ask officer on this one, because there was a sign there already existing in the past. So I think give some way, but is it just the fact that this is more sort of illuminated? We're doing this because just there being a sign, if this wasn't illuminated, I can't see a bigger issue because the sign that used to be there exactly the same place.
Mr. Byrne, are you able to comment, please?
Yes, of course. Yeah. If you can just bear with me, my computer seems to have gone particularly slow. Here we go. So this, I believe, is possibly a street view image of the sign that previously existed, which members can see was non-illuminated and also, you know, sort of has gaps in it that make it more transparent than the sort of greater mass and solidity of the Suzuki sign that's now proposed. So it's that impact as well as the illumination that we consider is unacceptable. I also believe that the previous sign, I don't think there is actually any record of advert consent being granted for that sign. But hopefully that explains to members and Councillor Hunt the difference between the two.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? So we'll take this one to the vote. Those in favour? Recommendation. Against? Abstention? One abstention. Who's abstaining? Oh. So again, permission granted, subject to the issue of notice. Or the split decision, I should say. Now we move on to item 2.5. This one is 21/502661 and it's the Master's House, Trinity Road, Sheerness.
Thank you, Chairman. Myself again. Again, just whilst I'm waiting for the details to load up here on the screen, I do have a verbal update for members. It actually relates to the planning conditions, and in line with policy DM19 of the local plan, which relates to sustainable construction, I'd advise that the conversion of the outbuildings to workshop accommodation should be designed to conform with BREEAM good standards, and I would recommend that that condition is added to the list of recommended conditions. As the wording of that condition is a pre-commencement condition, we do need to get written confirmation that that condition is approved by the applicant, who you will notice via Borough Council. And I would ask for delegated powers for officers to ensure that that confirmation is provided in order that we can impose that condition. So if members can consider that whilst they are debating the application, please. In terms of the application itself, Masters House is attractive building in the Sheerness Miletown Conservation Area. It's not listed, but we would certainly regard it as a designated, undesignated heritage asset. The main part of the building, which I'll just bring up, here we go, the front elevation. This is the main part of the building, and it's had a mid-20th century addition to it here. The proposal is essentially to refurbish the building to help facilitate use as offices, which the building has historically been used for. And some of the works also include refurbishment to the elevations to replace windows in the building. There are some locations where doors and windows are swapped out. On the original part of the building here, the proposal is for timber windows to new timber windows, whereas on the extension, the proposal is for aluminium windows to be used. The application also proposes to install solar panels on the roof of the extension to the building here, which would, to all intents and purposes, be set behind a parapet wall here and not visible from the road. The application also seeks permission to convert some outbuildings here, which are currently used as garages and storage areas, into workshops to be rented out. If I go back to the photographs, members can see here are those buildings. The proposal would be to add a pitched roof onto this flat roof element here and to refurbish these units as workshops. Members will no doubt note that obviously the council owns the site, and that's the reason why it's in front of committee tonight. There aren't actually any objections from any consultees or third parties, and the council's conservation officer is happy with the proposal, subject to the conditions that are listed in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. I move this recommendation. Pick up a second of views.
Yeah, I second.
Thank you, Councillor McCall. And again, this one's in your neck of the woods. Any comments?
No comment.
Thank you. Somebody else? Councillor Beard, please.
Yeah, I fully support the officer's recommendation. My only disappointment is that the main building is having timber windows and the bit on the side is going to have aluminium. I would have rather seen the whole lot done timber to give it a uniform look personally, but it is what it is. The only other comment I would make is if someone wants to go down to Sheerness Docks and pick up the original clock from the roof to put it back on.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
So yeah, my concern is over parking. And maybe Andy can just clarify it, because obviously I understand that it's a town centre and you've got parking right at the back there. But our own policy, there's no mention in the report about parking standards. Our own policy states that there should be parking, and also that sweat path analysis should be done for things like vehicles moving in and doing the bins, etc. I don't see any of that on the application at all. I just wonder if Andy can comment on why there's been no mention of any of that. That's in our policy.
Mr. Byrne, can you help us on that one?
Yeah, certainly. The park. I mean, obviously, this is a town centre location, and the parking standards and requirements are in town centre locations are maximum requirements, with the caveat that they can be reduced given sustainability credentials of centres, and this is one such case where we consider that the scheme can be supported without any formal on-site parking for that reason. There's obviously different ways to get to the town centre in terms of public transport. There's also numerous public car parks nearby, including immediately to the rear of the site, that can be utilised, and that's not uncommon, obviously, with commercial uses in town centres, that they come with no parking. In terms of tracking and so forth, apologies, but this should have been showing you a site plan of the site, but for some reason here we go. Right, it has come up now. I mean, there is a rear yard area here, and there's no tracking inside the yard as such for a large vehicle to be able to turn around. But here's the public highway here. This obviously takes you into the car park area to the rear. So any manoeuvring by vehicles outside the site to be able to come in and out in forward gear is done away from the public highway, and therefore is deemed not to cause any concerns in terms of highway safety. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else indicating. Members, just before, Councillor Beard.
I was just going to say, when this was the really old council depot, you used to have bin lorries back in that yard regularly. So it has been well known and well used for that kind of movement in the past. So I don't think it's any problem.
Thank you. Members, during Mr. Burns' presentation, he spoke about delegated powers for authority on DM19 issues. Could we just take a quick vote on that one, please? Those in favour? Okay. Those against? And abstentions, please. That's 13 for and 2 against. So again, permission is granted. Abstention, sorry, abstention. So permission is granted, subject to issue decision notice, and obviously the conditions and. It was, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. So now we'll come back. I'm trying to get it home. So now we come back to the substantive motion. So those in favour of the officer recommendation, as amended. Against and abstentions. Thank you very much indeed. So now we can say granted and thank you. Members, we move on then to part 5. Radio. Any comments? I'll take it right across the board on part. Councillor Simmons, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Just on 5.1, please leave the decision because the garage that was proposed was a very extensive increase to the area occupied. Obviously not going to be used the purpose for which it was intended. So I welcome it.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Yeah, 5.3. Make comment on. I'm not going to say too much on it. Just thanks for officers. It's a very thorough report on there, and I think something that all members need to look at carefully and take on board. I think for any future application, and there's some laid out clearly for it.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, please.
again on 5.3, thanks to the officers for quite a detailed summary. I'd just like to put, was it page 115 on there, despite the fact that planning inspector agreed with us on our reduction on carbon footprint and not, the Secretary of State decided to overrule, which does beg the question. Are we all in this together in trying to fight climate change, or are we fighting against those of us?
Thank you. Oh. That's something I can't answer. We can probably get an answer back, but perhaps not now. And we'll be able to do it now. Okay, thank you. Right, members, trundle through it in fairly timely fashion. Thank you all for your indulgence, and safe journey home, and look forward to seeing you at our very next meeting. Thank you very much.